Hello.
Hello there.
Hi. You're listening to Designing Yourself. My name is Paul McAleer, and bonus points if you said my last name correctly in your head before you knew how to say it.
And this is Whitney Hess.
So today we wanted to talk about fear. This is absolutely one of my favorite topics. Absolutely. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you feel about it.
I love fear
You love fear. Why do you? Well, I'll ask you a question first. Why do you love fear?
because it forces you to ask yourself questions about who you are, about where the fear comes from, about whether it really exists or you've just made it up in your mind. For a lot of my life, I thought that the fear was a way to keep me safe from things that could hurt me. But at some point along the way, I realized that the stuff that gave me the greatest fear was actually the stuff that I needed to spend my life doing. So now I love it.
You love fear. That's so
Oh,
awesome.
but I hate it too.
Wait a minute. Okay, so
What
you love
about?
and hate
Well,
fear.
do you like
Oh
fear?
no, I don't like fear at all. I don't like it. But here's the deal: is that I've never. I never have liked it, but I became very comfortable with it as an MO, and it's just kind of the way I operated, right? So fear was such an ingrained part of me that it was just kind of the norm. And when I say that, that's kind of a broad statement, right? That doesn't mean that I was fearful all the frickin' time, really. I don't think. But when it came to things that kind of make the experience of life really exciting and the way that I see it as exciting, those were the times when I would kind of seize up and be fearful and kind of fall back into just kind of this whole, well, it's going to be a lot easier to not do anything type of mode, and just kind of hold back and not do it because of the fear of, a possibility of a result that was not something that I could plan or like.
Go on though. What made that change? What created that change?
Ooh, it wasn't any one thing. Here's the thing too. Whenever you ask me stuff like that too, I want to find one answer and pinpoint it to one particular thing, which is something else that's interesting. Like I'm noticing this. It's like, well, it was this one thing,
Well,
and
isn't it interesting about me though that I want it to be one thing?
nice, nice. Well, then I will give you the answer. It was one thing, and whatever it was last time we talked about, I think it was April 19th was the date. That was the day it happened.
Ah.
So I'm going to go back to that. But what it was is that it was recognition of, well, it was the recognition in me that there was a pattern around it. And we talked a little about that last time, but for me, it was that I would get the gumption in me to change or take an action. And really it's take an action, right? And change could be a part of it, but it was do something. But I would hold myself back because it felt way more comfortable to just be in that moment and kind of swallow that fear up inside of me and not really feel it, and just kind of be numb to it in a way. Even the way I'm talking about it now is very different than I even used to think of it, because like a lot of things with self-awareness and self-acceptance, I wasn't able to name it or recognize it at all. Like that wasn't something I saw as fear. I just saw it as the way I was and the person I was. And now I see it as a part of me that is not very satisfying to all of me.
Absolutely. And I can so easily say that I love fear because I think that confronting my fears have allowed me to get to know parts of myself that I was denying. That there's something very important about who you are based on the things that you fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I would use my fears to avoid things. That was really kind of the most obvious thing for me. And I often feel that that's what we're taught. Like, fear is a good thing. It keeps you away from the bad stuff.
Right, right.
And when I really started to look at what is it that I'm so afraid of? Why am I afraid of this? And why have I been avoiding these things? I learned a lot of things about myself. One, I learned that I didn't really understand the thing. So part of the fear was the unknown, or not liking that I didn't know, or feeling as though it was foreign and therefore was wrong. And then another part of me realized that it was often about judgments that I had adopted from other people, things that had been ingrained in me from a young age from external sources, but that it wasn't really how I felt. It wasn't really based on my research, my discoveries. It was just these blanketed judgments about how life is supposed to be lived and what you're supposed to avoid and what you're supposed to aim for and optimize for. And as I started to explore certain fears, I realized that I actually wanted to do those things. The reason I was so scared of it was that I had constructed this box around it to keep me away from it because I really wanted it. And it seemed scary, it seemed dangerous, it seemed risky. I didn't quite know how to do it. I didn't necessarily know anyone else who had done it. And so I stayed away from it because part of me deeply wanted it. And so that's why I say I love fear. Because when I recognized in myself, now I'm able to say, there is something buried in that deeply that I'm really attracted to. I need to let myself get there. Now, I can say all this, but it's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, totally. Absolutely, right?
So I have the sleepless nights, and I have the bad habits, and I have the all of that stuff that you kind of distract yourself with when things get scary, and I have all of that stuff. But I have really recently, I'd say maybe in the last year and a half, kind of changed the whole way that I live my life. And now instead of trying to check off the check boxes of accomplishments, which is the way that I lived my life for a very long time, I thought that's what life was. Like, let me build the resume, let me build a portfolio. This is the next thing I'm supposed to do, the next rung in the ladder. Now it's like a constant search for what scares me the most. That's the thing I have to go pursue. I have to figure out why, and I'm going to go do it.
Wow, holy crap, that's awesome. That is, like, to me, that is ideal, and that's the direction I kind of want to go in. And when you're saying that, it makes me think about the big stuff that I'm afraid of. But then I also tie it back to the little tiny stuff too. Like there was a time at work, oh gosh, I don't know, about a couple months ago, and I really needed to talk to somebody about something that was very important to me. It was somebody I didn't work for. It was a guy on another team, but I had had so many problems talking with this guy. I just didn't feel comfortable with him. I didn't know him terribly well, but we each had kind of our own opinion of each other that had been manifest in the company culture in some ways, and that was in my head. Like, it was funny because it's almost like the sports stuff when you get in your own head, like any of that, you just get in your head and then you're just kind of living there. And boy, that's an awesome expression, right? So I really need to talk with the guy. And it was funny because I went down to his floor and I saw him walking around the cubes, and, he wasn't in his office. So it wasn't as I had pictured it in my head as how it would go down. So right there, my head was like, oops, maybe this isn't going to work out. And then I I kind of walked into the kitchen and I got myself some water and I realized what I was doing. And I was totally just delaying this. And I really had to check myself on that and say internally and kind of looking like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? He's just another guy. That's all it is. It's just a guy and you need to talk with him. And this is too important to not talk with him about. So, I was like, gosh, in that moment, I was so scared. I was scared, and it wasn't a big deal. I just needed to talk with him about something work related. I mean, it was so I look now, and the lens is just like, wow, it was so small. But at the time, it was so very big for me, and I even felt like I could feel a little bit of that tingling in my arms, a little bit like a little of the fight or flight stuff coming in for me, and I just walked up to the guy. I was like, no, 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 I got to do this. I walked up to the guy and I said, hey, can we talk for a couple minutes? And I said, let's go into your office and have a chat. And that was it. Like that was how I opened it. And it was funny because that part of me that really feared him was, oh man, that part was kicking and screaming and just did not want to be there. I don't think it was evident physically. Like I wasn't, hunched down or anything. I certainly didn't have my chest out and was super duper, super duper present in that way, right? It wasn't like I'm walking in with super confidence. But I mean, even talking about it now, I can feel my body reacting a little bit just recounting it. But we talked about it, and it was a hard conversation, but it was a good conversation, and it ended in a very good place. And I was just thinking and remembering about how much that really affected me at the time and how very scared I was to just talk with another person about something. And that was all it was in the end. And it was, yeah, I was so very scared.
It's so amazing for me to hear you tell this story because one of the things that I have been actively doing in my life right now is trying to maintain presence. It is exceptionally hard. It is actually quite unbelievable how not present most of us are. And it's not a slight, and that's not a criticism. It's just an observation, and I include myself in that. We live entirely in the past or in the future, replaying the thing that person said, and now that we've had the distance, how we would have said it differently and how we really would have gotten them, or is that really what this person meant? And wait a minute, I didn't hear it that way, but now I think that they meant this, and replaying, or inventing future conversations, how it's going to go, what you're going to do, what they're going to say. If they say this, then I'll have this ready, and if they decide this, then this is going to be my next step. We spend so much of our energy replaying what has happened in the future, or replaying what's has happened in the past, or inventing what's going to happen in the future. And this desire that I've had recently to develop my presence stems from a lot of places. But one of the areas that it continues to come up in, it's a very common practice or common kind of topic in Buddhism, in meditation, in yoga, and these are a lot of things I've been surrounding myself with lately because I am a very high-strung and uptight person, and it's not the easiest thing for me to just be. And I moved to the Florida Keys thinking that I needed space and I just needed headroom to focus again, and I was spread way too thin and I was totally burning out. And then even being in like the most peaceful place you could possibly imagine, my mind was still racing. So this is a new thing that I'm doing. And the reason I bring it up is because this one book that I read that has had a very powerful impact on me, and then I gave it to my boyfriend. I gave it to him without having read it because I thought that he would enjoy it, and then he was like a chapter into it, and he was like, okay, I'm giving this back to you because you need to read this. And then I
Wow.
recommended it to a bunch of friends. It's called The Power of Now. It sounds very new agey because it is, by Eckhart Tolle. And the thing that he says is that fear is is us living in the future. That's what fear is.
Totally. That's awesome.
Fear is
I
living in
love
the
it.
future. And I'm like flipping through right now because I'm trying to find the quote.
Sure.
Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough presence.
So good. Oh my gosh, so good. Because so there are a couple things you mentioned. I want to get them while they're still in my head because I'm trying to be present. Is that living in the future? So yeah, that is. So I noticed that in a couple places for me. Now, one is when I meditate. Like that is something I am still absolutely practicing on, and it is hard. Also, it is not hard. That's the beauty of it. But the thing I notice about myself when I start almost always is that my mind goes elsewhere. I am thinking about what I'm going to do afterwards. I am thinking about what I'm going to do in an hour, what I have to do later that day, tomorrow, whatever. Like it's almost like my calendar is just flooding me at this time when it's really about, me just kind of being, right? So that happens to me. And that is something that, boy, I am fairly confident the term is monkey mind on that. And I love the term, right? I want to be sure because I want to be sure, but I'm totally not. So I'm going to say it anyway. So it's monkey mind, but I'm just racing and these other things are kind of entering my head. And the importance with the meditation is to, it's to acknowledge that, yes, it's in your head, but not to really chase it down and to just let it be. Because I also found, initially when I started meditating, I would get songs in my head. I would get, things that people said to me in my head, just people would show up. I mean, it was just that kind of thing for me, and getting to a point where it became about me and my body, as an abstract concept, but in that space at that time, then it turned to more body awareness. But that it's not like I've absolutely not perfected. I'm still totally practicing on it. The other thing about the future stuff and the sleeplessness, I definitely want to talk about this too, because so you mentioned you have sleepless nights, and I do too, but they are so rare for me. Like I can count, I think on maybe one hand, the number of sleepless nights I've had since I was 21, right?
Really?
So it's just like, that's
Oh my
not how I
God.
roll. I am totally a sound sleeper, and you can ask my wife about that.
That's
But
amazing.
well, those are the ones I remember. I could be totally selling myself short. But there was one that happened. It was about a month. It was about a month or so ago, and I was having a very stressful time at work. And there were conversations and things that were happening, and I just had this overwhelming sense of things were going to change, and not in a way that I would want them to change in. It was out of my control. I acknowledge that now, but wow, when it came time to go to sleep, I remember I was laying there, it was like 11 or so, and my wife was sound asleep, and I was just up. I had my eyes closed for a while, and it totally didn't work, and my mind just started going into all the scenarios of the things that were going to happen the next day, like all of them. And my mind could not stop. It was just, here's how it's going to go down in this guy's office, and then we're going to talk this way, and here's what you're going to say. And I swear it was like every anybody who's ever done a user flow and has had to map out. Here's the tie-in. Everybody who's had to map out every use case of every user flow, that was what was going through my head that night of what could happen tomorrow. Like all the future possibilities, I was just like, here's what's going to end. This is going to happen. And I just was terrified because it was keeping me from being asleep, which is something that I have a little fear of, which is maybe a separate topic. And then just the fear of like almost all these outcomes not being really positive, like not ones that I would choose to have happen. So I remember, but the thing is too, is I remember just kind of laying there and, and part of the thing I do, and maybe you do this too, is that, you'll have these things in your head. You'll look at the clock. You're like, oh shit, now it's 12:30. You roll back over or whatever, and more of this happens, and you roll over and now it's 2:00. And it's just, that is all engaging my mind mostly, because my mind is like, no, you really need to be asleep. My body wants to be asleep, but my mind is not really letting me. So what I tried to do this last time was really, whenever these scenarios came up, I tried to acknowledge where I was in that moment. Because I would take a moment, I would try to breathe, and I would say, nope, you're in your bed. You're in your bed. It is 1:45 in the morning. You're here. Just breathe, and that's it. And at first, it really totally didn't work. And I don't know ultimately if that did work, but I did go to sleep that night. But it took me such a long time to even calm myself down in that scenario because I was thinking about everything that could happen tomorrow. I wanted to, for some reason, my mind wanted to plan out every single thing that could happen tomorrow and be ready for it, which is totally, that's totally how I've operated for so long. And this was like the magnificent manifestation of that,
Well, we're total control freaks. We just need everything to go our way. I mean, obviously, and we're all that way. We're so afraid of other people making decisions that are going to force us into situations we don't want. And it's not a slight on us. I don't mean that at all. But I am really I'm so tired of needing to be in control all the time. That's the thing that I just feel so exhausted by, because I have always gone through the exact same thing. I mean, it's amazing to me that you say that these sleepless nights are rare for you. We are similar in a lot of ways, but in this way, we're very different. I often have sleepless nights. I often cannot stop my mind from racing. And
Wow.
it's not that I have trouble falling asleep. I'm actually quite good at that. It's that a few hours later I wake up and I cannot go back to bed. And I will have been up the entire night, and then in the early morning or late morning, I don't know, I'll then need a nap. I'll want to go to sleep when I need to be getting up. But I will have done 15 things by then, because the mind racing gets me so crazy that then I have to get rid of it. And I just answer emails, or I try to get things off my to-do list, or I write, or I do a lot of mindless, wiki hole stuff. I just go down the wiki hole and I start researching a bunch of stuff. What's so interesting to me is that you were able to find that meditating calmed it, that you fell asleep from the meditation. And from my understanding, and I'm really curious to hear more about what your meditation practice has been, but from what I understand, because I am a total newbie at this, is that the whole purpose of meditation is to develop presence. It's to not be in the future, it's to not be in the past, it's to cherish that present moment. And it's funny for me to think now about when I couldn't sleep as a kid, and that typical thing you hear, count sheep. And I always thought, what the hell is counting sheep? This is so bizarre. Why is this so ubiquitous? Why do we see this in TV shows? And why do parents tell their kids to count sheep? And just in hearing you talk about how this puts you to sleep is now for the first time connecting in my mind that counting sheep is a form of mantra meditation.
Oh, wow.
All you're doing is focusing on the number and the image of a sheep jumping over a fence, or whatever the image is that you conjure up. And your mind is captured and is full by that activity, by that repetition. And so you can't think about the past and you can't think about the future in that same moment. And
That's
so
really clever.
you're
Wow.
present and you fall asleep.
Wow, totally, totally. And for the record, the way I always pictured it was, the sheep were, they were slightly cartoonish,
Yes.
and the fence was like a brownish fence
My fence is
and
white.
fairly low. Okay, and they would have numbers on their sides too. So
We
that was
must
there
have
too.
seen this image on a Sesame Street kind of thing, because
Maybe
that sounds
so.
very familiar.
Maybe so, and maybe that's what's been perpetuated, right? And that's the that's how you count sheep. Maybe that's the only way. But boy, you're right, because that's it. It puts you, it forces you into that moment, right? It's like you're concentrating on this moment in, this very, well, arguably boring process, right? Because it's really just, counting numbers up. And that is about being present. And in, with meditation, I must also say I am absolutely not, I am a newbie at that as well, for sure. I'm not a super duper expert at that. No way. But when I started doing it, it was to calm me. And then I realized, well, that's kind of just a side benefit, and that's not really what the purpose was for me. I got that out of it, but then I recognized, well, maybe there's nothing to get out of it. It is simply to be. But you're right; it's about the present moment and having that level of awareness that runs very, very deep to the point where you become an abstract concept. That's my understanding and interpretation, which I trust is wrong in some way.
No.
But maybe it is. I don't know. But okay, I will say that for the way that I do it, that is where I let it take me. To the point where, much like with breathing, just that, and having that very fluid concept of the entire universe is there. You are a part of it, and you are able to bring everything in and out. Like that, to me, is a powerful image. And that is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, all the way. One of the best books. My friend Ryan recommended it to me. God, I love that book so much. So very good for me. But just the idea of your breathing, just being a swinging door, just something that lets everything in, lets everything out, and very, very fluid, very calm. I'm making the hand motion of that swinging door right now, sitting here. Like I'm actually doing that too. I'm talking with my hands a lot tonight, I noticed too. But it's totally just a very fluid and easy movement. Now, getting there from a place of being so ramped up and amped up about what could happen tomorrow. I don't have a strategy on that. I just kind of tried to calm myself in that way, and just, and just say to myself, breathe. No, breathe. And it's funny because I say that to my son too sometimes, and he does it. Actually, he likes to do yoga, which is awesome.
That's so cute.
He totally does.
I love my yoga, and I've done it many times in the past, and I've been really intensely interested, and then somehow life gets in the way and I stop going, and then it's like a year until I pick it up again. I'm determined this time to not let that happen, but I am loving it. I'm loving everything that it's about, and it's fitting into a lot of these other practices that I've been introducing myself to lately, all in the attempt to be more present, to understand who I am, to let go of a lot of junk from the past, to let go of a lot of expectations for the future, and just to be happy in the present moment. And a lot of this was prompted by the power of now, perhaps, but I'm of the belief, just as I said last time, that there's, I don't really think that starting happens. It's like once you realize that it's happened, it's been going on for a while. In order for us to have even been attracted to reading The Power of Now, we were already in motion in this way. So I think that presence is something I've been craving for a while, because calm is something I've been craving for a while. But what I'm really kind of amazed by, that presence and yoga and meditation helping you to develop presence allows for, is letting go of the ego. And you said something that made me think that that's what you meant, that there's this moment when you realize that you don't really exist the way that you think that you do.
Totally.
And that conversation that you're dreading doesn't really exist the way in which you imagine it does. And it's just of not any importance really at all to the universe. And that you are just a being, a living, breathing being, taking the air in and letting the air out. And in that, you are exactly like everyone else. And that's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. And not just other human beings, but you're connected to all things. And I'm finding the calm in that. I'm finding the calm in how meditation and how presence on the greater scale, how much that connects me to nature, how much it connects me to my environment, and helps me realize I'm not in this alone. And a lot of my fear stems from that. It's not just being an only child, but it's being trapped in this head. You know, I've been trapped in this head for 31 years as of tomorrow. I have
Happy
been
birthday.
trapped, thank you, trapped in there. And I've wondered, and I remember wondering at a very young age, how do I get out of there? How do I go somewhere else? And even the whole notion of vacations, I always found really funny. Like, we take ourselves out of our external environment as though that has anything to do with it. It's like, I always think of Moby Dick because it was a really long time ago that I was forced into reading it in high school English class, but I'm pretty sure that the moral of the story is you can't escape your own problems no matter where you go. You just can't. And, you know, even being in the Keys, all the stuff of who I am and what I struggle with and what I desire and what I can't have because that's just not how the past was written, and who knows what the future will bring, and the ambiguity of it all, the unknowns, all of that still exists. There is nothing that I can do to change my environment. I can't have a nicer house. I can't have a better manicure. I can't have nicer clothes. I can't have a higher paying client gig or whatever. None of that is going to change the fact that I still hear my voice in my head all day, every day. And what I am so attracted to with the meditation and developing presence is the concept that you can actually get that voice out of your head. And more so, that that voice is not you.
Ha.
That
Yeah.
voice is not you. And the thing that he says in The Power of Now that he underscores over and over and over again is by the sheer fact that you are listening to the voice is not you. You are the one doing the listening. That's your true self.
Holy smokes. Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that blew my mind. Wow. Wow, that's insightful.
I know you gotta read this book. You gotta read this book.
Well, clearly I do. Clearly I do. Because it's the assumption is, you know, the narrator, oh my gosh, and now my mind is, now I'm talking to myself in my head. But the, you know, the now there's the debate is raging.
It's like Inception.
Totally, right? It's like, no, yes, no. But wow. So the narration, the commentary that's going on in your head is not necessarily you because you're doing the listening. Wow. Okay, that blew my mind.
It is
Sufficiently.
so
That's good.
amazing that we all experience this. We all,
Totally, right?
you and I happened to have a moment of synchronicity when we met at the IA Summit where we were both able to articulate something about who we are and what we want for ourselves at the exact same moment where we had a connection, and we've been able to maintain that connection and form a bond because we had that very lucky moment. But I fundamentally believe that everyone is going through this. Everyone is. It's not just like you and me and we just happen to be in these phases in our lives, and so isn't it interesting that we can connect on this? It's like, no, I really feel that everyone is going through this, and the more comfortable I get with talking about this stuff, the more I find that everyone I know is thinking about the same stuff right now. And I think it's possible that everyone's always been thinking about this, but I just haven't been comfortable with it. A big part of my fear comes from needing to appear like a fearless person. And I don't really know why I've kind of had that obsession for a long time, but it's forced me into a sort of hibernation of having to work through a lot of my fears by myself, because I've been the most afraid to let anyone else see just how afraid I am. And I'm slowly giving that up. It's not easy, and I'm getting fears. I feel fears rising in me right now that I'm saying it, knowing that we're going to be publishing this and that people are going to be listening to this, and
Yep.
someone who might know me might hear this and is now going to know that that is like, whoa, that's scary. I mean, the last episode when you mentioned that your coworker said something about like, oh, do you follow Whitney Hess on Twitter? That a conversation happened in the world about me that I wasn't present for. That's fucking scary. Like, I can't even handle. It's a kind of foreign concept that because I'm so scared of it, I've never really wanted to even entertain the thought that people are talking about me when I'm not there. That is crazy to me, and I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. But here it is. When you put it out there, and this is me doing exactly what I said I wanted to do and that I've been engaging in at the beginning of this, I have to dive right into the fears and I have to break them wide open. And one of those things is sharing just how scary life is and just how much I have been afraid of. And I'm damn lucky that I've had the resources, resourcefulness, willingness, what have you, name it what you want, to be willing to stare them down and say, no, you are not going to own me. And so it may appear, based on things that I've done in my life, to others, like, there's no way that she could have been scared because she did X, Y, and Z. But no, the only reason that I was able to do it is because I was so fucking scared of it.
Totally. And I think that's, one thing that that pops in my head, because I have to, at some point in our conversations, I have to evoke Merlin Mann's name, because, and this will be the time that I start. One of his excellent talks that is, I believe, on Vimeo, and we'll put out a link or something, is called Scared Shitless. And it was so good. Because much like this to a degree, he's articulated how, what the difference is between people who are doing stuff and people who are not doing stuff. It comes down to fear and dealing with it, right? Because there is just fear everywhere, right? Potentially, if you want it to be, it can be that way. But there's the potential for fear everywhere, because if you let yourself be in the future, you can come out with every terrible possibility for everything if you want to, right? And I'm thinking about that mostly on a big level, not really the little tiny level. But I mean, there's the very real possibility that this will be my last moment. I don't know, but that fear in me is so very tiny that I feel I can deal with that fairly well.
Oh, that's not a tiny fear for me.
Oh, okay. Well, let's come back to that for
yeah,
a
go
minute.
ahead.
But so anyway, the whole thing with, there's so much that you could do or one could do, but doesn't because of fear. Like that is the crux of the problem, or the limitation, is that the people who are doing the things that you would like to do or should do or could do are basically getting past fear. Now, it's different for every person. I mean, there's some people, I think about it, obviously everybody's different, but there are some people, it might not just be fear, it might also be it might be a physical limitation. It might be something else that's an important factor for them, and it's not simply fear. Or maybe they blow past that freaking physical limitation and do it anyway. But there is that moment when I trust, like most other people, and this is, I think, a shared experience. You come up to that moment against fear, and you can either step back and say, not going to do it. And for me, there's been many, many times when I went to that point and just step back, because it's way more comfortable and less scary, for sure. Or you go through with it and you deal with things like, the possible physical manifestation of fear, public speaking. I mean, that, getting the butterflies in the stomach and all that stuff. I mean, those are common experiences, but I think the fearlessness is the interesting point in having that perceived fearlessness, because, I haven't seen you speak in person, but I've seen your videos on the web, and I didn't get a sense of fear from those, for instance, right? So mission accomplished. I'm projecting the fearlessness in those scenarios, right? But taking that beyond public speaking in a scenario where most people are, kind of fearful in general, and putting that into everyday practice, well, that changes things a lot, because then it leads to the little conversations that we avoid or don't want to have because of fear of an outcome or fear of what could happen. Those are the actions that we don't take. Those are the things that we don't do or say. And we let the fear be us, even if we are not made of fear, which I would guess, just putting a guess out there, almost all of us are not simply made of fear. But it's something that just, we can let it drive us if we want to. And it's funny because you mentioned talking about this, and how you have this fear of people hearing it. I'm sitting here, I'm shaking a little bit when I'm talking about this, because this is a really, this is a heart of the matter type thing for me, and I don't talk about fear at length like this. So this is new, and this is, and much like you, it's like, and we're going to put this out there too. So it's scary.
It's so scary, and there's so many things that we do to take us out of the moment, because it's such a scary place to be, to stay and to sit in. And I can't even imagine how many situations I've been in where I've allowed fear to dictate the outcome of the situation for me, when it wasn't even, how I wanted it to turn out, but I just couldn't do what needed to be done. I couldn't have the conversation. I couldn't finish the document. I couldn't meet the deadline. I couldn't purchase the flight. I couldn't transfer the money into the other account. I couldn't whatever. There are so many things that flood my mind where fear has forced me to have to live with an outcome that I really didn't want. And I've noticed that there are certain things that I do that indicate to me that I'm afraid of something, that fear is happening for me, before I can even pinpoint that emotion. Before I can even say, there must be something going on that I'm fearful of, or, wow, I'm really scared of this. I notice other things that I'm doing, and it's the things that I fall back on that take me out of the moment. I'll give you some examples. Needing to check up on TMZ. Oh, I just have to know what's going on with these celebrities. Or, I wonder what the update is on that awful news item, because I need to know that right now. Watching TV and being just taken out of the moment and escaping through someone else's fictional story. Eating has been a big issue for me. I have always struggled with eating the right things for emotional reasons. I have totally, emotionally eaten or whatever, covered up my emotions by eating something that tastes awesome or is really bad for me, or it sometimes goes in the opposite direction where I'm eating only really healthily. And it becomes, in a way, the thing that I invest my time in, and I make it about the food. Oh, I'm only going to do this. I've done 4-Hour Body now for 2 years. And I know that at times it's been really good for me. But at other times, I feel like it was a device that I was using just to not be present with whatever was going on right now. Because I shouldn't need a dude with a book to give me rules for how to eat. Let's be honest here. If I had that inner peace and if I was present, I would eat the right amount of the right foods and I would still be able to have a sweet because it would be in moderation and it wouldn't be in excess to the point of making myself sick or being unhealthy. It's a lot of these things have been kind of crutches for me that have buried the fear or that have distracted me from the fear. Instead of just facing it, looking it right down and saying, screw you, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to think about you anymore, but I'm not going to do that by, distracting myself with all this other stuff that's not good for me. And I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to explore it. I'm just going to dig underneath it and figure out what I'm really scared of, because it's rarely the conversation with the guy. It's rarely the thing that you have to buy or whatever else is getting in the way. It is almost always something that's underneath that's a deep-seated fear. And you say, and I'm happy for you that you say you don't really think about it. It's like a distant idea that this might be your last breath, but that's a big one for me. Like, am I spending my days doing the right thing? Am I going to have all the days that I need to make the impact that I want to make? Did I waste today because I was in an emotional place that I distracted myself or that I procrastinated and I didn't accomplish what I had set out to? Will I get another chance? That is in me all the time. And it only exacerbates it, because worrying that today is your last day is the worst way to, ensure that you're not going to stay present and be peaceful in that moment and do what feels right and take care of the things that matter to you. Because all I'm thinking is what I do right now has to be the best thing possible, because I may never get another chance. And it's not healthy at all. And it's just, oh my God, I feel like I'm rambling now. But it's just so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. Who's keeping track? Who's got their ledger and is judging my everyday? Who's like, you know what, she really didn't do that. She didn't tweet enough. She tweeted too much. She didn't write enough blog posts. She didn't call enough clients. She called too many clients. She didn't answer enough emails. She answered too many. Who's doing that? Who's checking up on me? It's a crazy thing that I think so many of us live with and just are stuck in this self-judgment constantly, because we're afraid that we're not doing the right things, that we're not making enough of an impact, that we're not fulfilling our full potential. And it's just bizarre.
Well, it's like we've all got this scorecard that we're keeping track against, but nobody knows what the hell scorecard is. But we just have this sense of whatever we're doing is almost certainly wrong. And, I even said that earlier about meditation, for goodness sake. I said, oh, I'm doing it wrong, but, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. But even that, I have, I made that comment, and that was coming from a place of, well, somebody listening certainly knows more than I do on this, and they will say you are wrong on this.
Yeah.
That's where that came from. And you're right. And boy, you just unleashed 50 different topics on that last statement, but that's cool with me. I think beyond that, though, a lot of it does come down to the fear. I was thinking last weekend I went and I went to a place that I really love to meditate. And when I was walking to it, I really had a strong presence of mind, and more so than anything else. And at one point I was thinking to myself, if this is my last moment, I'm okay. And
Wow.
Even that though is so freaking self-indulgent now that I look at it. And I don't mean that in a super judgmental way, I don't think. But boy, I designed that moment as much as I could. I chose, I had the opportunity to meditate on my own. I had some time on my own. I was able to pick where I went. I drove there. Then I walked to the place I meditate, and there were so many things that I chose in that moment. But even like I don't have any control over that, for goodness sake. The tough part would be that if I said that same thing to myself in a moment of true adversity and or fear, that would be freaking scary. And I am nowhere near there. So I'm not saying I'm totally chicken shit or anything, but I think that I had that a moment of awareness in a very, very carefully designed moment, you know?
You know, I think you're way too hard on yourself.
Awesome. Thank
I
you.
think you are awesome. And you
Thank
know
you.
what? Stop judging.
Done. And done.
It's funny, all this stuff that we're talking about. Um, I'm just recently discovering that this is what Buddhism is all about. Now, I consider myself to be a fairly intelligent person, fairly well read, definitely well educated. And I am not afraid to admit that I had no idea what Buddhism was until about a month ago. I knew it was a religion. Well, I think I was wrong because I don't really think it is a religion, but I thought it was a religion. I knew it was old. I thought that it was nicer than some of the other religions. I was pretty sure that wars hadn't been started over Buddhism. I was pretty sure that that's what the Dalai Lama was all about, but I really didn't know a thing about it. And all this stuff that I've been reading and the stuff that I've been doing, and even the coaching program that I'm going through, all these signs started pointing towards Buddhism. Now, I'm Jewish. I was raised Jewish, not particularly religious, definitely very spiritual, and have been my whole life, but also a little wary of religion as a concept. Just like the human intervention of it all, as though like a group of humans have all the answers, and if you just follow these things, you'll get the answers too. Always been kind of skeptical of that. And so I wasn't really loving the idea of starting to explore this thing that I thought was religion. But the few books that I've been reading and the few people that I've been talking to and the few Buddhist meditation centers that I've been looking into online and whatnot, I'm starting to see it's not really a religion at all. And any of the Buddhist practitioners who are listening to this, I suppose, can write to us and correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm under the impression it's not really a religion. It's like a life practice or a philosophy. And I think that that's in large part due to the fact that Buddha was not and never claimed to be a type of God or a human version of God or holy in any way. Was simply a dude who sat under a tree and came to some realizations about life and decided to dedicate the rest of his life to teaching people what he came up with in the hopes of creating a more peaceful world. That's a really simplistic paraphrase, but I hope that it's a fairly accurate one. And the reason that I bring it up is because one of the Buddhist meditation centers that I've looked into is called Spirit Rock. And it's in San Francisco, just outside of San Francisco, actually. And it was started by this guy, Jack Kornfeld, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And I read an article in the SF Chronicle a couple days ago because it's their 25th anniversary, and so they were getting some write up for something. And he tells this story about how he came to be a spiritual teacher and how, where he came to Buddhism, and particularly how he's now doing this Buddhist stuff in the US. And the story that he tells is that he was um, living in a Buddhist monastery somewhere, I think it was Tibet, and had been there for many years and eventually left and was back in the US and was meeting his sister-in-law or someone for lunch. And she was running late, so he was sitting at the restaurant table and thought, I have a moment to kill. I'm going to meditate. And closed his eyes and meditated on loving kindness, which is one of the things that Buddhist meditation teaches, is how to really think about loving kindness, or I guess I shouldn't use the word think because meditation isn't really thinking, but how to meditate on loving kindness in the with the intent to foster greater loving kindness within yourself and within others. And while he has his eyes closed, just meditating simply at the table waiting for her, he overhears two women say, "Oh my God, is that guy for real?" And at that moment realizes that the rest of his life will be dedicated to teaching people in the West why this stuff matters so much. And I was really moved by that. Don't know if the whole Buddhist thing is going to be for me. Don't know if I'm going to find any truth in as I explore more deeply. Don't know that it's something that I will take in as part of my identity the way some people do. I don't know that I'll ever go to a meditation retreat center place. I don't know that I'll ever know what all the words mean, and maybe the whole thing is not the right path for me. But what really resonates for me is this idea that part of us, part of our society, and part of all of our minds has that, oh my God, is that guy for real in it. It's in there. It's programmed. Because I know as I'm reading this stuff, I think, oh my God, is this guy for real? With all this stuff that I read. And even though it's speaking to me, I'm still cynical about it. And I feel really moved in a similar way, though I'm sure that I will go about it in a very different fashion. I don't know that I'm going to be running a Buddhist meditation center anytime soon, but I feel really moved by that notion that we could dedicate our lives, not just our careers, but our whole lives, to helping other people recognize the importance in being present and in cultivating that for themselves and the vast benefits that that has on the world. And when I stop to think about it, I hope that this connection is not seen by you or by anyone listening as a opportunistic one, but I really believe that there is so much of what we do as user experience designers deeply wound up in that. This deep, deep desire to help businesses recognize the importance and the presence that they have in their customers' lives, to help them recognize the importance and the presence that they have in their employees' lives, and to lastly, to cultivate loving kindness within the organizations and with their customers. Is that not what we do as user experience designers?
No, I think it's totally what we do, because the whole thing is built on empathy and understanding, at a mind only level, understanding user needs and being able to call those out. And you think about, boy, if you think about some of the activities that we do as user experience folks, there's the role play and scenario creation and persona creation and all those things. Those are all centered around people, and the whole point of it is to get to a point where we not only listen to people, but we understand them as much as we can, and that goes well beyond what they say. That's the old that's the old, oh gosh, how often do I hear the Henry Ford quote?
Oh my God, kill me now.
I hear it every day,
as though that
practically.
quote is like an antidote for our whole field, our whole industry.
Totally, right? But it goes well beyond that. When you start to look at things like Indy Young's work in mental modeling, I mean, for me, that was eye-opening, and just being able to take what people say and do, more importantly, and their behaviors, and get to a place of understanding and comprehension. And yeah, that's what it's about, but all too often it's outward focused and not inward focused with
Yep.
us. And
Yep.
when you start to do the inward focus, and at least this was the case for me, like you were talking about, the is this guy for real? Boy, when and we had this on an earlier call before we did podcasts and stuff. I joked at the end when I said, well, I haven't even brought up chakras yet. And it's going to be like, and it's like, ooh, you're gonna flip your lid on that. But it's something that resonates with me. And so what's wrong with that? There's still that check in me, though, that really says, wow, maybe, that's kind of out there. That's hippy dippy trippy stuff, right? And we put all these labels on that stuff.
Yes.
But you know what? If it's meaningful, so be it.
And that's just fear talking.
Yeah, it is, right? It's just the fear that, wow, maybe there's something to this, and it resonates with me. It makes sense to me in my head. It feels right in my body and my spirit, or whatever other components you have. But it's that is, and that alone is enough. And there does not need to be the judgment that goes with that too.
I couldn't agree more. And it requires each of us to take a look inside and to develop ourselves to the greatest extent that we possibly can, to our greatest capacity, because that is what enables us to help develop that compassion within others. If we are not starting at home, we're never going to make any real progress with the people around us. And we also just have absolutely no authority to tell other people how they should be if we're not actively learning that way to be ourselves every day.
Absolutely. And it is such a learning process, and it's never done.
Ever.
Never,
That's
ever,
what's so
ever.
beautiful about it.
Yeah, totally.
Back to Zen mind, beginner's mind. Always beginner's mind.
Yes, it's beautiful stuff.
Oh my gosh, we thought we could tackle fear in an hour.
Mostly did.
We got
Mostly
wrapped
did.
up.
Yeah, we mostly did. So an hour on fear. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I still love it. I love it. It makes me crazy, but I really think there's something very special there. I'm so glad that you wanted to talk about fear today.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me about it. This has been a phenomenal conversation, and there's so much that, I mean, the last thing I'll say is that there's so much that I'm afraid of, but the difficult and super exciting part is just plowing through that anyway and doing it, no matter what the fear is. Love it.
Absolutely.
I think that's it.
I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
I can absolutely say the same. Cannot wait. And I will also chime in and say thanks to everybody for listening too.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon.